Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to look at Ruckus. This is a tactical card game for 2 to 4 players for ages 8 and up, and the average play time, well, according to the box, it says 20 minutes. But if you're playing a 3 to 4 player game, or if you're new to the game, I would honestly give yourself an extra 20 or 30 minutes just to give yourself some time to get used to the gameplay mechanics and the different card effects. So yeah, a tactical card game, 20 minutes. I know what you're thinking, that doesn't make sense. A lot of tactical card games take about an hour to play. Well, this one breaks the mold a bit. It's actually pretty simple, despite it being a tactical card game. In essence, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be attacking other players with your goblin armies in an effort to earn victory points. So with that said, let's take a look at what came in the box and how the game is played. Now here's a quick snapshot of the components. As you see here, there are a lot of different cards. These red cards are your kicker cards. Think of these as one-time use cards that are played throughout the game to do something special. You've got these green cards over here. These are your victory point cards. Players will be trying to win these throughout the game in order to earn victory points. And then you've got these 4 decks here. There are 4 different goblin guilds in the game, hence the reason for 4 different decks. And to match these 4 different guild decks, you've got these 4 screens, and they happen to match the different guilds. So for example, you've got fighters in blue here, you've got clerics in yellow here, you've got thieves in gray here, and finally necromancers in purple here. And like I said, these are screens, and throughout the game, players will be able to deploy troops behind the screen secretly, and then at the same time, they'll all reveal them. That way, there's no cheating as far as, planning based on what your opponents are doing. You've also got these green cubes up here. Players will be basically using these as damage counters as players, or as cards get damaged or units get damaged throughout the game. They'll be adding these damage counters to them. These are also used to mark special effects as they are used. This is your first player token. And finally, you've got your victory point tokens over here. Players will be able to earn these to earn victory points, and they tie in with these. However, on the reverse side of these victory point tokens are different buffs. Instead of using these as victory points, players have the option to turn these in, the reverse side in order to give their army some type of special buff, depending on what the icon says. Now, just to give you a quick disclaimer, I am not going to cover every rule found in the manual. The rule book is like 22 pages long. While the game is simple to play, there's still a lot of different mechanics to look at. So, to keep the video at a respectable length, I'm just going to give you a brief overview. With that being said, moving on to game setup. You've got your victory point tokens here. The special effect side is placed face down. You've got your cubes here, first player token. Players will take 5 cards from the victory point deck. You shuffle them up and take 5 cards. The rest are taken out of the game, and the 5 cards are placed here face up. You've got your red kicker deck there. Again, those are shuffled up beforehand. And then finally, each player will choose a guild and receive the appropriate screen. And then they're going to draft their deck. Now, the game boasts 3 different ways to play, and that is representative of the 3 different ways that you can draft your deck. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but beginner players, for example, can opt to simply take the cards that have a black star in the lower right-hand corner of these cards to form their own personal deck. More advanced players can draft their deck and customize it a bit using the point values shown in the bottom right-hand corner. And they'll have to observe these points as they're drafting their own deck. Whichever way you happen to do it, you should end up with your own personal deck of cards, and every other player will end up with their own personal deck of cards with some left over. Those cards that are left over will be combined and placed into one big, gigantic upgrade deck. I call it the reinforcement deck. Now, the game is played over a series of rounds, and on the first phase of any given round, players will enter the draw and formation phase. I've already done so over here, but over here I'm going to just show you quickly what that entails. Players will draw 5 cards from their deck, and they can place as many as they want to. Now, there is something in this game called a 3-2-1 formation rule. Players will have to observe that. And luckily, the screens here will demonstrate what that all entails. A 3-2-1 formation simply means that you cannot have more than 3 cards in your front row, no more than 2 cards in your second row, and no more than 1 card in your third row. So if we were to observe that with this player, let's go ahead and put, I don't know, let's do 3 on the front row like this. And again, we can't put more than 3 in the front row. Then we have a choice. We could like do 2 on the second row like that, or we could split that up. No more than 2 cards on the middle row, and no more than 1 card in the back row. But let's just say that the player here wants to do this. Once players are done setting up their formations, they'll all eliminate their screens and remove them at the same time. Okay, the next phase is the activation phase, and here players can activate 1 skill, or if they have a victory point token that has some sort of ability on it, they can do that. For example, a player could, this is a melee damage token, and they can play that on one of their cards on their turn if they want to. So I'm just going to give this to Purple right now. So it is Yellow's turn to activate a skill. He has the first player marker. And let's just take a look at what he has here. Tuck is... That is a reaction. When you play this card, you may recruit 1 card. This one over here, plus melee damage to the row in front of this unit. So we'll go ahead and use that ability. And then over here, Purple gets to then activate a skill. But he also has this Rat-a-tat card. On the very bottom here, it says, while this card is in play, you may activate 2 skills per turn. So that gives Purple an edge. So we're going to let him use this particular melee damage thing. We're going to put it on here, on this card, to give Pokey an extra melee damage. And for his other skill ability, we'll do Tussle. Draw and play 1 kicker card. So he's going to draw a kicker card, and this is a double whammy. And this says, attach this card to any unit. That unit gains +2 melee damage, discard after use. So we're going to give this one to Pokey, I guess. He's going to be a very potent fighter here. Alright, so now that both players have activated their required skills, we're going to move on to the next phase. Next up is the declaration phase. I call it the attack phase because that's all you're really doing in this particular part of the game. All you're going to do is you're going to total up how much damage you're capable of doing, and then you will inflict that much damage onto every other opponent. So in this particular instance, Yellow, we're going to take a look at him. He's got 2 melee damage here, 1 melee damage here, and 1 melee damage here. You can see how much damage they do in the top left-hand corner. There's either going to be a melee symbol or an arrow which indicates range damage. I'll show you that in a minute. But any melee fighters in the front row will do damage. Any melee fighters in the back row do not do damage. Whenever you assign damage, it must be to the front row of your opponents unless otherwise indicated. So in this particular instance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now Mortimer's special ability that we activated before says +1 melee damage to the row in front of this unit. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 5 potential melee damage here. Now Purple, we're going to look at him. Purple can do 1, 2, he's got 3, this 4 from this particular victory point, and then 5, 6 for the double whammy. And Rat-a-tat is in a back row, but he has a little arrow symbol, meaning that he's ranged. So he can also add a point of damage to this. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possible damage here. Next up is the resolution phase, and what we're going to do here, players will actually be allowed to assign their own damage based on how much damage they got from their opponents. So starting with the first player here, he received 7 damage from Purple. So he's going to take 7 of these cubes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then apply that to his front row. So he's got 1 heart here, so he's going to die. This unit has 2 hearts here, meaning he can take 2 hits. But that's the maximum he could take. And then finally, this guy has 1 heart on it. Any extra remaining damage that's left over that cannot be applied is just simply wasted and discarded. And now we're going to apply damage over here to purple. Purple, again, can assign his own damage. Yellow did 5 to him. So he's going to go ahead and choose 5 cubes to assign on his front row. Again, that's unless otherwise indicated. Cleaver can take 1, Wallace can take 1, Pokey can take 2. Alright, now once this is all done and players are done assigning damage, they'll go ahead and resolve them. In this case, basically everyone on the front row is dead. So these are simply taken away, put back into the stock over here, and these 3 cards are put into the discard pile. And the same thing over here. All these cards are dead. This was used as victory point token, so that gets put back. The double whammy card, the instructions were to put it back after use. So all of these are put into the discard pile. Now, players have the option to move their cards forward, and to do that, they'll just simply take cards that are like in the middle row or back row and move them up. There are specific rules to this. I'm not going to go over them here. Just suffice it to say that you have to move at least 1 forward, but you can move more forward if you want to, so that any cards that happen to be in the back row that are melee have a chance to attack in a following turn. Alright, now the round isn't over yet. There are still cards out on the table, and the goal here is to be the last one standing for that particular round. So players are going to have to repeat the activation phase, the declaration phase, and the resolution phase. That is, choose a skill, resolve it, and then assign damage, and basically this goes on and on until there is only 1 player left standing on the table. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that purple was eliminated this round, and somehow, through some type of stroke of genius, yellow has 1 card left on the table, and he would win this particular round. Now, he would go ahead and draw the chosen victory point card, or the topmost victory point card, and gain whatever the special effect here. It says, when you win this card, gain 1 victory point token. This is placed into the player's discard pile, because when it is drawn again, sometimes there is a special effect. When you draw this card, for example, draw 1 card, then discard this card. So you're going to place this into the discard pile like so, and this player would get 1 random victory point token. He can look at it, of course, and he can save that. He can either save it till the end of the game or use it throughout the game, depending on what kind of special ability it is. Last but not least, we have the upgrade phase. Here, any losers or any players that didn't get a victory point card during this round will get to draw 1 card from the upgrade deck, and this is why I call it the reinforcement deck. But basically, again, any losers for this round will get to draw 1 card and place it on top of their draw pile. Now, it's important to note that if you remember at the beginning of the game, each player was contributing to this upgrade deck. So as the game progresses, you may end up with cards that belong to your opponent's deck, allowing for a lot of mixing and matching to go on. So this will continue over a series of rounds until all of the victory point cards are taken. And then at the end of the game, players will total their victory point cards and tokens that are in their possession, and whoever has the most wins. And there you have it, a very quick look at Ruckus. Again, I didn't cover all of the rules found in the manual, but hopefully this should give you a nice general overview as far as how the game is played. For a tactical card game, I'm very impressed. Normally I shy away from complicated games nowadays just because I don't have the time anymore to deal with it. Yeah, working full-time, having kids, and doing this on the side doesn't leave for a lot of playtime. But anyway, yeah, Ruckus, this is a good introductory tactical card game. It's still tactical in the sense that you have to think about where you're going to place your units whenever you get to assign them on the battlefield, because each one has different abilities. Some do melee damage, some do range damage, so you do have to think about where you're putting them. But the game is also chaotic enough to where things could happen at the drop of a hat. A player could activate an ability that snowballs into this huge decimation of cards. So, you know, on both sides of the coin, really fun. So, check out my review if you haven't already at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.